If you haven't been with us, we've been looking at the journey of discipleship here at Crossroads. There's some cards out at the Next Steps table if you want to grab them. And we've started unpacking this journey of discipleship. And so that journey looks like guest to friend to family to disciple to missionary. At the end of the day, our hope and heart is that none of you live just as I'm a church goer. Not just you, but anybody. Our hope and heart is that you're not just a church member, wherever that may be, but our hope and heart for all of you is that you live as a sent one, that the Lord Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who defeated death, the one who poured out forgiveness over your life, who's called you to your unique life in Christ, that you are sent out to be light in the midst of darkness. And we would hope that all of us would know that where we live, work, play, eat, sleep, drink, that is the place that God has called us to. And you would know how to be a sent one, a light of Jesus, a missionary within the world. And so we're unpacking that over these over the next few weeks and last couple of weeks. We looked the first week at what it was as we're a guest, as we're someone, maybe this is a good word picture. A guest will be someone who's looking in at the Jesus life or the Jesus family, knows the church, and to say, do I want that? Do I want that? And then last week, we looked at this shift from guest to friend. And that guest to friend move is someone who's beginning to explore Jesus, who's exploring discipleship. And we look through the lens of Nicodemus now. And we mentioned last week that some of us, we just say, we hear the gospel, maybe we have a moment in our life, something happens, we all of a sudden say, look, I'm in, I'm a follower of Jesus. That's what we mean by friend, I'm becoming a follower of Jesus. But for some of us, we need to explore discipleship. And last week, we just said, these are some questions that might be helpful if you are exploring discipleship. Do you want to get that next slide for me, Jared? Thanks so much. So, is exploring discipleship for me? So if you're wondering, what is the Christian faith? Is the Christian faith for me? Who is Jesus? If that's a legit question in your life, what does it mean that Jesus is also God? Does God still work and move today? What is the Bible? And can it be trusted? If any of those are questions that you may be asking or anyone in your life may be asking, then we want to say exploring discipleship is for you or them. And the vehicle, the learning experience we're going to use for that is called Alpha. If you weren't with us last week, here's just a video of what Alpha looks like.
Life is busy. Every day we ask questions like, what's happening today? What should I wear? How am I going to fit everything in? But then there are bigger questions like, why am I here? What's my purpose? Where am I heading? Is there more to life than this? These are some of life's big questions, but there's rarely enough time to think them through. That's why Alpha exists. Alpha is a place to explore life's big questions in a safe and open environment. It's a series of sessions where anyone can share their thoughts and opinions and ask questions without feeling judged. When you come to an Alpha, you'll notice that first, there's food. Whether it's a full meal or a light snack, this is the time to get to know each other in a casual setting. Next, you'll watch an Alpha talk. The talks are created to engage and spark conversation. They explore big issues around faith from a Christian perspective. After the talk is a time for discussion. This is the most essential part of any Alpha. It allows everyone to share their own opinions on the ideas presented in the talks. It's a time for people with different thoughts, beliefs, and experiences to ask honest questions and have open conversation. Every week, there are guests coming for the first time to an Alpha in their community. Alpha is for everyone, regardless of background or beliefs. There's no pressure, no follow-up, and it's completely free to attend. Come and explore life's big questions. Find an Alpha near you today.
So as you're watching that this morning, thinking about those questions, it might not be for you individually, but it may be some folks that you know in your life that would say, gosh, that would be, like, I would love for them to take a step towards Jesus, and that would be a great way for them to do that. We'll probably have some gospel families this January, as well as some places here within the church as a whole that'll be launching those. So something to think about. Today, we're going to look at this move from friend to family. And that move from friend to family is the move of, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, like I'm a Christian, and now I'm committed and invested in a Jesus family. All right. Now I'm a follower of Christ, and now also I want to move into a sense of I belong to a Jesus family and beginning to live out God's call upon my life. Now, as we think about that move, sometimes there are some obstacles that can get in the way of to what that looks like. All right. So these are some common obstacles that can get in the way from making the move from friend to family. The first one is this. So we don't know the story. We had an encounter with Jesus. We believe, but we don't really know the story that we belong to. Like we might say, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, but when it comes to just the big picture of the story, the Bible, I don't really know it. I don't know the family I belong to. A couple of months ago, my grandmother died, and we went to West Virginia, spent some time up there. And after her funeral that evening, we were sitting around the kitchen table, and my dad started telling stories about Grandma Faye and Poppy. So Grandma Faye's husband, I call him Poppy. They were my grandparents. So Dad grew up in their home and started to tell stories about them. And I've heard a bunch of these stories before, but my kids are sitting around the table and they haven't heard a lot of those stories. And so I said, Dad, tell the one about the horse. And Dad said, there was this one time where your Poppy, my dad, bought a horse and didn't tell Grandma Faye about it. And for a few weeks, he had the horse up in the barn that was the back barn. They lived on a farm up on the mountain. And I came home from football practice one day, and Grandma Faye said, Chuck, what's your dad doing in that barn up there? There's something going on up there. He's been up there an awful lot. And sure enough, she walked up to the barn, saw the horse, and we said, what happened? He said, well, Poppy had to sell his horse. It was not a sad day. Now, it's just a funny little story. However, Dad told those over and over again, and leaving out of that night, my kids sitting around that table have more of an idea of what it means to be a Pullins because of those stories. When it comes to us being followers of Jesus, it's really important for us to know the story that we belong to. And sometimes an obstacle in really making that move from I'm a follower, a friend, to I'm a part of his family, sometimes we don't know the story. And so you might be in a place where you would say, hey, I'm a Christian, but I've just never really felt like I'm all the way in when it comes to being a part of his family. And it may be that you just don't know the story. Another obstacle that we have sometimes is we want fast food religion instead of a journey of intentional discipleship. We just want it quick. I was talking with someone on Friday night after our gospel family, and in the midst of our conversation, just basically said to them, like, here's the reality. We're all journeying to death. Like every single one of us. We are journeying to death. There will be a moment where we breathe our last breath in this world. And I just said to him, I said, the one thing that I don't, if God willing, I'm able to be on my deathbed in that moment, I don't want to be in that moment questioning, not having peace, or not having assurance, or wondering, or being afraid. Like I'd love to be in that moment, getting ready to transition from this world to the next with people around me who love me and having the faith and the assurance that the things that I've been running after in my life will carry me, i.e. Jesus, into this next phase of my life. And I don't think fast food religion is going to give you or me that peace and assurance when that day comes. But I do think an intentional journey of discipleship that you or I have been walking on our entire life, it will prepare you for death. It will get you ready for that. It will get me ready for that. On a church level, sometimes just an obstacle of moving from friend to family is that the church, Big C, has often cared more about you and I checking the box of Sunday attendance and financial giving than your growth as a disciple. So the church has often treated folks more like you're a notch on their belt, and the more notches, the better, instead of actually helping you and I grow into what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So as a result of that, we really haven't helped people make that move. So today, we want to take a moment and just look at Jesus' life, look at the move that he makes with the disciples. We're going to be in John today, chapter 15. And just as you're getting there, whether it's your phone or with a Bible that you have, John invites the disciples into his life. So he invites them in different ways. The ones that are fishermen, he tells them to go out and drop their nets. Again, they fished all night long. They haven't caught a thing. He tells them, hey, go out and drop your nets. They go out, they drop their nets. They catch all kinds of fish. They look at him, and then he says, okay, drop your nets and follow me now. I'll make you fishers of men. We had some like Matthew, who was a tax collector, who he called him into his life. But either way, he has these 12 men that he calls into his life, and he begins to disciple them. He begins to walk with them. He spends intentional time with them, grounding them in his story. Right? So Jesus is always grounding them in his story, and then he's forming them into his life. And so what we want to suggest here, that as we make this journey from friend to family, it is a journey of being grounded in a foundation. It's foundational discipleship, but it's also being formed into what it means to be a follower of Jesus. It's formational discipleship. So for Jesus, the beginning of the journey was about establishing a foundation and engaging in formation. In this scripture this morning that we're going to look at, it's towards the end of Jesus' journey with the disciples in the Gospel of John. And he's basically saying to them, our relationship is getting ready to change. In the same way, Jordan, my oldest son, was home from college this weekend. It was so good to see him. And I was... Amanda, I don't think this is true, but my wife Amanda thinks that when, like, my family's around, like my brother, my sister, my mom, or my dad, or like a really good friend is around, that I act differently with her. Like, I tease her a little bit more, or I make fun a little bit. Like, I don't think that's the case, but so we're there that night, on Friday night, Jordan's around, and I'm having, some fun with Amanda, and Amanda said, Jordan, he's treating you like he's one of your friends, the way he's acting around me right now. That's what he's doing. And Jordan said, well, when I turned 18, Dad told me that, hey, I'm still your dad, but now we move to friend status. We've had the first 18 years. I've done what I can. Now it's up to you, bud. I'm still here for you, but now we move to friend mode. That's kind of the transition that Jesus is making with the disciples right now. It's as if he's saying, hey, look, we've walked together for a bit, but now I'm getting ready to release you into what he would say would be greater things. Let's just take a look at this real quick. We're going to read verses 12 through 17. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Now, they don't know what's coming, right? Like you and I read that, and we know because we have it in front of us. There's just a few little, pages that go by, and we know that's exactly what Jesus is going to do. But they don't know that at this point. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father, I've made known to you. Now, I don't get into the Greek language with you guys that much, but that Greek word for friend right there doesn't mean friend like we understand it, okay? That Greek word for friend right there, it means like what I would say, like, you're my boy. Like, you're my bro. You're one of my ride or dies. Like, this is deeper than just like, you're my buddy. Hey, friend. No, this is like you're in the inner circle. This is more of family language than it is friendship language. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. I now call you friends, right? Like, you're my bro. Like, we're together. You and I are in this. We've moved way past just the acquaintance stages, and now I'm going to pass off everything to you. I would say it this way. Now, as family, I command you to love each other the way that I loved you. At the heartbeat of moving from, we would say, from friend to family is learning to have a deep love and affection for one another that's grounded in the same foundation and formation that it's almost like it's our last name as we're moving together as followers of Jesus. So we're to help each other establish a foundation to stand on, to engage in formation so that we all are empowered to live our unique life. So we're going to say in the next couple of weeks that it is important for you to figure out and to discern what is God's call upon your life. But we want us to say this, that in the midst of my individual call, it's standing on a common foundation and formation that we're all moving in the same direction on. Does it make sense? Nod, yes, maybe, ish. All right, I'm getting more, not much from over here, a little bit from over there. All right. All right. Next thing is this. The discipleship journey toward our unique place in Jesus' family, it starts with building a foundation and being formed in common practices. So, before you and I can know what our unique place is in Jesus' family, we need to have a foundation to stand on, and we need to have common practices that can help us be empowered to live out that call. And it's what Jesus did with the disciples. He walked with them for a number of years and gave them a foundation. He formed them into what it would look like to carry on his mission and ministry. And then from that, he then released them to go and do greater things, which we have in the book of Acts, the story of the church. And this is what we want to fight for here. And more than anything, it's this. We want to try to model Jesus' journey with the disciples here within this place, so that we just wouldn't go through the motions of church, but we'd actually follow along on a discipleship journey. Which means that before you or I can step into our unique role, we need to have the foundation and be formed in the family. That's the journey from friend to family. It's this journey of foundation and formation. Okay, here comes the fun part. So, foundational discipleship. How do you know if you need foundational discipleship? This is the move from friend to family. How do you know if this is where you are in the pipeline? Do I know the story that I belong to? Okay, it's going to be a 6-week journey. And what we're using for that, you guys are going to love this, it's the Big Picture Storybook Bible. All right? Big Picture Storybook Bible. Okay? All right, so let's just play along. Okay, let's play along. Get your phones out, or if you're taking notes, we're going to have a little quiz. Just find out if this is where you are. All right? This is where you are. Okay. Question number 1. And don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud. Just jot it down. Who did God call to build a big boat? No, not out loud, not out loud, not out loud. Okay? Not out loud. Seriously, people. Okay. All right. Next one. Next one. Who did God save from his brothers and make number 2 in the land of Egypt? Number 2 in power to Pharaoh in the land of Egypt. Okay. Let's write it down. Now, this is fun, but I'm so serious in that it's hard for you and I to expect one another to really step into missionary life if we don't know the story that we're a part of. And honestly, we just need to own it if we don't know it. We just need to own it. In 6 weeks, we've piloted some of this in some of our gospel families. This thing is amazing. There are things in here that's helped me with the story that gives me the big picture. Okay, that person was Joseph. Okay, not Jesus' dad, Joseph. That's a different one. Okay, Joseph. All right, here, let's find another one. Let's find another one. Okay, who took his son up onto the mountain to be sacrificed? Abraham. All right, Abraham. All right, here we go. We got another one. I'm so serious about this right now too, by the way. So this is the prerequisite stuff here, you guys. All right, here we go. Oh, let me say this. You may also say, you know what? I really want to be a part of helping people get a grasp on the big picture. One of the things I feel called to do is to help people understand the story they belong to. Well, we need to get you trained so you can help lead people through this, okay? Who is the one that stood up and said, when the Israelites crossed over into the promised land, choose this day whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord? It's a little bit more difficult, isn't it? Joshua. 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 All right. Who was the youngest son that was from the little town of Bethlehem that became a king? Trivia day on Sunday. Break them into teams. Have prizes. Oh my gosh, there might be some legs for that. Somebody write that down as a note. All right, that would be David. David was the youngest boy. It could have been Jesus, but he wasn't the youngest boy. All right, David. That was David. Okay. All right. Who was the prophet that battled an army of the worshipers of Baal and brought fire up from nothing? Elijah. Elijah. Who was the king? Who was the king that came in to Israel, destroyed the temple, and took Israel's best and brightest to Babylon? It's good, right? Like all of it's right there. That's King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. Did you get it? All right. Now, on a serious note, okay, on a serious note, on two levels. I don't know. We fought for a good 3 months on what this vehicle looked like. And our biggest fear in choosing this one was that folks wouldn't really humble ourselves and say, you know what, that's where I am. But then we fought and said, you know what, our folks are better than that. They absolutely will. I don't know of a better tool that will help give you the big picture of the Bible than this. And my promise to you is that in 6 weeks, you can learn more about the big picture of the Bible than maybe you have your entire life. Okay? Second thing is this. For you that have children, I think Jen said this morning, you're the number one disciple in their life, meaning like it's your primary responsibility. Sometimes kids are great excuses. They're great excuses. And so use them by reading this to them so you can learn it. All right? Now, there are going to be some gospel families that may just say, hey, as a gospel family, we're going to have each gospel family, in light of this message series, identify where we are as a gospel family. Like which one of these? Do we need alpha? Do we need this? Do we need a couple of the other ones we're going to put on the table over the next couple of weeks? Where are we as a gospel family, and how can we just engage in that? And so some of your gospel families may say, hey, in January, we're just going to read through this together. And we'll have some discussion questions for you along the way. But that's foundational discipleship. Foundational discipleship. I'm not going to ask you how many you got right or wrong. Okay? I will say that there are probably some in here that I would miss. I just forget and not get, but not many. And I just think it'd be great if you could say not many. when it comes to your life about what it means to know the story that you belong to. Okay? The second one is formational discipleship. And is formational discipleship for me? And that question is, do I know how this story is lived out at Crossroads? So we would absolutely say that part of being a follower of Jesus is belonging to a Jesus family. And in the book of Acts, there was only one family to belong to start off with. But now in 2018, there's lots of families just in Fayetteville that are Jesus families to belong to. And obviously, for those of us that call Crossroads home, and as many people want to, there's always a seat at the table for you, and we're so thankful for the family that we have here. However, it is the question of how do we live out that story here in this family? And it's always a little different. Some of you, especially who are in the military, you move around quite a bit, and you come and say, my last church, it was like this, or at my last church, I did, they're all a little bit different, and no one is better than the other. Obviously, you're always tempted to think, well, ours is a little better, even though you say it, but it's not the truth, right? It's not that. No one is better than the other one, except they are different. So now that we know the story, how is it lived out here at Crossroads? So that journey is going to be where we're unpacking common spiritual disciplines like prayer, study, fasting, and investing into and putting into language some of those key discipleship tools that we use here. In other words, the tool of hear and obey. Do I know how to say, God, what are you saying to me, and what am I going to do about it? Do I know the tool of how to live an integrated life of up with God, in with His family, and out into the world? Do I know how to have good rhythm of rest and work within my life? Some of you all that have been through discipleship here, just some of those core discipleship tools, we're going to put those in formational discipleship. It's going to be a 10-week journey that we're going to put together. And so you might say, look, I've got a handle on the story, but I'm not sure quite how that story is lived out here at Crossroads. And then that last move to family is family discipleship. It's formerly known as Test Drive. It's a one-night learning experience where you say, look, I'm ready to join this particular Jesus family known as Crossroads Church. So that's the move, you guys, from friend to family. And so you might say to yourself, I'm right there. And we just want to help you take that next step. The goal of this whole message series is at the very end of it, every one of us can identify where we are, and we know where the next step is within our lives.